Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Sedate the Stress. I am your host, Adrianna Muñoz. I am delighted to have on Stephanie, who says, I'm a first generation Latina mom of three who spent over 20 years in corporate across sales, HR, IT, and learning and development before realizing I wanted something deeper than climbing the ladder. Founding 503 Cafecito has allowed me to turn my passion for heritage and culture into a business that honors farmers, builds community, and creates generational impact. What inspires me most is my family. They are the reason I work tirelessly to build something bigger than myself. You are going to love today's episode with Stephanie Herrera. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow along for more episodes of Sedate the Stress, where we talk all things about practical leadership and navigating conflict. So, Stephanie, would you mind telling us a little bit of who you are and just I'm so excited to have you here. And I know that after you introduce yourself better than I ever could, people will just be like so excited to listen to this episode too.
Oh, yes. Well, first off, I would just like to thank you so much for having me on. It is a pleasure. But I'm Stephanie Herrera, and I am the co-founder and CEO of 503 Cafecito. But more importantly, I am a mom. I'm a mom of three, a wife, and I've been working corporate for over 20 years. So really just balancing everything has been a lot of fun. So that's really just like a big overview.
So I'm hearing that you have so many different roles, you wear so many different hats, and I just know that I follow you on like TikTok. You are just crushing it on there. This is a plug for Stephanie. If you're not following her on TikTok, please do. And I know that you're just balancing a lot, and it's just so refreshing to see you taking the time to start this company. Would you mind sharing how your career has developed to where it is today?
Oh my goodness, where do I start? I think I'm going to start from the beginning, but I promise I won't bore you. Well, I've been working from a very young age. Being Latina, my parents are immigrants and just felt the need to help out, right? If I wanted to have money to go out with my friends, then unfortunately I needed to work for that money because times were hard. And both my parents worked. So I've been working since the age of 14 at my aunt's bakery. So I think that really
Wow.
taught me what it was like to hey, if you want money, you have to work hard for it, right? And I've always seen my parents work. That was, I feel, instilled in me from my parents and then working at my aunt's bakery. And I liked the money, right? So I think that led into me having I got more jobs and I started working retail just to get me through college. It's what kind of worked with my schedule. I was also a young mom. I became a mom at 20. So it really shifted into, even though I've always been very creative and I wanted to, move to LA. So I live in the LA metropolitan area. And obviously things shifted. So I then knew I needed something a little bit more stable, something that was steady. I got a regular 9 to 5 in like a mom and pop shop, working in aerospace and government, and we just did parts in the warehouse. So I worked in the office, started off as a receptionist, but then I quickly moved into inside sales, and then I became the assistant to the CEO and the VP of HR. So I think that's really when I started really learning what it was like to work with other employees and just really learning the business, the ins and outs, and I wanted something more. And so I was there for many years, but then I transitioned and I work now for a Fortune 500 company where I've worked everywhere from accounting to marketing, sales operations, even IT,
Oh,
which is where
wow.
my learning management system experience came in. And I've kind of just like a jack of all trades. Like, I know a little bit about everything. So I've been there for over 12 years now, but in overall, it's just been over 20 years experience just working, corporate and just learning so many different roles.
Oh my gosh. So, like you said, jack of all trades, that really resonates with me because I'm an ER nurse, so I know a little bit about a lot of things. But and I would say for me, the most important skill set I've curated is learning how to talk to people. It's hard, and as an ER nurse, like you could be the best nurse, but if you don't know how to get your patients on board with care, de-escalate people, you cannot be you're not as effective.
Yes.
And yeah, and like that skill set really translated for me me, and I still had a lot to learn when I stepped into formal leadership roles, but people are the greatest asset, right?
Mhm.
So I know that you've had different leadership roles. Let me think of the best way to phrase this. So in leadership, what's been like the biggest lesson that you've taken away from those roles? For me, it was difficulty delegating. I was like, I'm not good at delegating. And that was the thing that was like, Adriana, come on, girl, you have to give up some of this. White knuckle my work. So for you, what was like your biggest learning from those roles?
Oh my gosh. I love that you mentioned communication before you started this because I definitely believe that communication, even in a leadership role, is so important because if you don't have great communication with your team, honestly, I think you really don't have a team. You can't communicate whether that's just different projects, and you have to be really good with your asks and even with delegation, right? So for me, I like that you mentioned delegation as well because one of the first things I had to learn was learning to let go and
Mm.
trusting your team. So I think there's a variation of just being able to communicate, being able to delegate, and trusting who you work with. I think that's really important. And I think from trusting your team, you're able to delegate. And then it's also important how you communicate all of that. So I think for me, all three work really well hand in hand. But with the leadership of delegating, I started laughing when you said that because for me, I feel like it's still something that I struggle with only because I'm so particular with like how I do things. And then when I show, it's like I have to show that person how to do that. But I'm also very open to if you find a better way, something that's going to make this go from, if you can 10x this, if you're able to find a faster way, please by all means, right? I just feel like I sometimes get stuck in my ways because it's what has worked for me, but then I have to stand, sit back and be like, I trust my team. I know they'll do a good job. I trust what they're doing. But then that communication just, let me know. So I feel like all three are very important in a leadership role.
Oh my gosh. Trust and delegation are hand in hand. They're siblings because without trust, how can you delegate? And then also, I think for me at least, I could say it was trusting people to fail well because I knew that people were going to make mistakes, but it's trusting them to do the ethical thing that was full of integrity. It's like, okay,
Yes.
own up to your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Ask for help, recognize, like we're human. You can't know everything. So that definitely was hand in hand for me. And I know that my background in leadership, I approached it as the oldest daughter in a Mexican household. So I was like, at first, yeah, I was like a hammer. I was like, this needs to get done like yesterday. And I was like, Adriana, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, and so it was like relearning how other people prefer to be communicated with and trusting people to do things and knowing that people have experience and they needed to get the experience. Otherwise, I would be neurotic all the time. So it's
Yes.
always for me, it's a constant learning about how other people prefer to be communicated with to make sure that what needs to get done it can be facilitated by other people as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's interesting, right? Especially if you have a team, like a large team, and you're working with different people. Everyone has like their own personalities. Everybody works, have different working styles. And
Mhm.
even with like dealing with conflict, right? Like to think of it, and I swear I'm not trying to be like condescending in any way or try to like belittle anybody, but being a mom, it's very similar to when you have kids, right? Because all three of my kids are so different. I have to talk to one very differently than the other, maybe a little bit softer, maybe I need to be a little bit harder. But I think of that as the same way as when you have a team with like, really understanding the person and understanding them and how they like to, work with you and how you talk to them. So it's very similar. You can't just be one way with your entire team. So I think I definitely bring my mom into my leadership for sure.
Oh my gosh, I get that comment a lot on LinkedIn where people are like, I should try this with my kids or I
Yeah.
should try this with my husband. And I was like, sure, but don't hold me accountable.
Yeah.
It's those skills, they translate though. They really
They
do.
do.
Conflict is conflict. And
Yeah.
most of conflict at work, close to 50% of it is personality conflict. People just like egos just not getting along. And so I would imagine that your experience being a mom and managing personalities that are so different definitely does come into play.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It really does. Like that's one of the first things that I realized when I got into like a leadership role is, oh yeah, no, I can't I can't approach this the same way with everyone. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And I know that so you have your so much corporate experience in the leadership roles that you're in there. And now with 503 Cafecito being the CEO and co-founder, would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off right, I had always thought, okay, I'm going to move the corporate ladder. I'm a lifer. This is what I want to do. Like, I just envisioned, like, even when I would get a promotion, it wasn't enough. Like, I was already thinking about my next role and how can I get there? And that's what motivated me up until recently. And I really started reflecting, and I had this opportunity to join my cousin, who were partners with 503 Cafecito. And that's just bringing Salvadoran beans from volcanic soil available here in the States. And so, as I'm learning about not only the process, but the farms and the people, it became so much more than just selling coffee, right? And I think that also translated to, oh my gosh, like I no longer see that vision in working for somebody else. It's like working for yourself and then just having that autonomy of not only working with my partners and now we have a team, but it's like we all trust each other. We all have the same vision of just at the end of the day, it's like we're doing this for our families and we're doing it for the farmers, right? Just because we saw how unfortunately they don't get paid like a living wage that's sustainable for them to retire, they're going to work until their last, until they can't no more. And that was really sad to see. So it really just became so much deeper and so much bigger than just, oh, I want to do this because I just want to start a business. It was so much more. And I just became so much more passionate about that. And so, looking at the leadership from how it was in corporate and now working on a team, I think it's so one beautiful that who you work with, if you guys have that same vision, we communicate all the time, like with my cousins, because they're my partners. We talk all the time, and it's just been amazing. We all trust each other. But I have to admit, being the CEO, just having that responsibility, and you're now wearing, like, I used to wear maybe 10 hats in the corporate, my 9 to 5, but now I'm wearing 100, right?
Mm,
Just because we're still such a small team. And I think just the communication aspect of it has been very important. But the biggest part of all is trusting myself. I think that
mm,
I had to really work through because I questioned myself a lot. I think working in the corporate world, even though you're in a leadership position, you're still getting, from like executive level, right? Like these are where we want to go. And you're pretty much just taking that information and then just taking it to your team, right? But when you're the CEO of your own company, you're the one making those decisions and you're the one kind of delegating and having to, is this the right move? Or, what decisions do we need to make? Like, because you can go in so many different routes,
mm,
but then you're like, okay, you don't have anybody else above you that kind of knows and that's telling you what to do. And you can't really fall back on, okay, well, I was just following someone else's direction. You're the person now making that decision. And so, it's been something for me to really just trust myself. And I need to be more confident. I do know, I have to understand that I don't know everything, but I've been learning so much about so many different roles when you have marketing, accounting, all these like sales jargon, the talk and just with like branding and just the simple day to day as well, right? So it's been a lot. But I think it's just really taking that leadership role. And now it's not having to follow somebody else's direction. You're having to make that decision yourself along with your team now. So that's been the biggest difference. And in
mm.
just trusting that it's okay. You can pivot if you make a mistake because you're going to make mistakes. And I have to be okay with that. So that's, I know that was a lot. I said so much, but
No, no, that was great. And I'm hearing about all the experience that you've brought into this role too, which I think makes you a really wonderful person to lead this company because before you stepped into 503 Cafecito, you had marketing experience, you'd been managing L&D, you've done accounting, you've worked at mom and pop shops, and now you work at a Fortune 500. and just you have all these skills that build off of each other. But it's so interesting you say the learning how to trust yourself. And I think it was Layla Hermosi who said this. She said that as the CEO, you're the chief decision maker of
Yeah,
the company, and you're the
that is so
or
true.
yeah, or the chief reminding officer too, where your job is to steer the ship and remind people what direction the ship is going. And it could be a little daunting too, because a lot like it's uncharted territory. So I would love to know how you've developed that skill set. And I know it's something that we're all always learning too. So what is your internal dialogue like when you're kind of thinking about a decision and maybe it feels really big or really scary? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, in the very beginning, I love to do my research. I love to be confident in the decisions that I'm making. But now in this role, I don't have all the time in the world to just sit on, let me just continue doing research. Let me just make sure, all of my different avenues. Yes, it's good to do research. Yes, it's good to do that, but don't sit there for too long. So I used to get stuck in analysis paralysis, and that's what would stop me from making any decisions and moving forward. But when you have a business and you run a business, everything is pretty much like go, 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 that you can't sit on it for too long and you have to make a decision. And this is
Hmm.
where it's so important that you just have to trust that you are making the best decision with the information you have at the time and be okay with that. And if things don't work out, that's okay too, right? But then you have to pivot, right? So, maybe having like a backup plan or already thinking ahead 5 steps with, what if this doesn't go as planned or what can we do if the numbers aren't coming in? Um, so for me, I think that's where I've had to really learn how to just be a quicker decision maker and really also relying on the people around me because I don't know everything. And so we have certain, for example, my cousin, she handles all the financials, right? My other cousin, he's, in charge of the operations. So I think just really relying on that and taking action immediately has been what I've noticed is so important. Where maybe before it's like, oh, I have to ask a question. Okay, I'm going to do it after I finish this and that. I'll send it later on today. No, 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 I don't do that anymore. It's like I have a question and I send that message off or I send that email or can we jump on a quick call, right? Because it's it's a lot easier to just like explain it over the phone. But so we're in constant communication. So yeah, no, definitely it's been that quick decision making and just knowing that you're going to learn along the way. But it's that taking action. So,
Mm. I
mhm.
love that. Analysis paralysis. That's definitely something that I've had before too, where I would do my research, but it was really me just like asking everybody for their opinion.
Yeah,
And I'm just like,
too.
what would you do? What would you do? And so it
Yeah.
was just learning how to sit with the discomfort for me
Oh,
and then just kind of say, you know what, I think that this makes the most sense. And myself, now that my business is like a few years old, I'm still always learning. I'm still growing a lot. There's a lot of work yet to be done, but not making a decision is way worse than sitting there and not doing anything. Because if you're
oh
not
yeah.
doing anything, you're not going to learn. And I think that really translates to leadership too. And specifically for conflict, a lot of people I think avoid the conversations,
Hmm.
boundary setting. I do a lot of boundary setting, like help with all my clients. And they're like, oh, I don't want to do that because I'm worried people will be mad. And then we'll touch base like the next month and they're mad about the same thing. And it's like, well, like any small step in the direction is the right step in the direction. So thank you for sharing that. That's such an important call out.
Yeah, no. And I love that you mentioned being uncomfortable. That's definitely, I think I've shifted my mindset before something was uncomfortable and I saw that as a red flag and maybe those were territories that I just shouldn't go, right? I had to think like, no, it's uncomfortable because I haven't done it before. It's
Mm,
uncomfortable because it's new to me. It's like obviously it's my body's natural reaction for me to feel that way just to kind of keep me in the safe zone. But being in the safe zone, you're not going to grow there. You're not going to elevate yourself in like learning new skills or learning something new and being in a business, you have to. So for me, I'm like, I feel uncomfortable. That's a good thing. If I'm not scared, then there's something wrong with that. Like I'm like pushing myself to be uncomfortable, to be scared, to do this is actually scary, believe it or not. Like, just being on a podcast, I'm like, what if I mess it up? What if I say the wrong thing? But it's like, no, that's okay. It's just because I haven't done this enough. So,
Oh, we're so happy you're here. And
Yeah.
I just think that, like, what I see so often now is it's like these false promises. It's like 10x your income in 2 days. Like, it's so easy. You don't have to pick up the phone. No, you're going to have to do so much stuff that's going to feel so cringy. And
Yeah.
you have to kind of be okay just being really bad at something for a while. And it's the same with leadership. Everybody started somewhere.
Yeah.
Brene Brown started somewhere. All of our presidents started somewhere. It's not like people turn into leaders overnight. So that's a good call out. And I think, what are your signs that you're uncomfortable? Because I think that sometimes people talk about these topics a lot and it sounds like it's a great conversation. But for you, how do you know your body is rejecting an idea and you have to let your brain kind of take over what's happening?
Yeah, for me, it's overwhelm. When the second I see something that's overwhelming, in my head, I immediately see, okay, I don't fully understand this. Okay, I know this is going to take me a long time. Naturally, what I would do is, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. I procrastinate on it. And it's because I was afraid to jump in and I was already overcomplicating it in my head. And I knew, okay, I'm going to have to dedicate maybe an hour of my time. I'll do that later. So I would try to knock out all my smaller things that probably just honestly, that could have probably waited. But I was doing anything and everything not to do that one thing that was very important. So
Mm,
for me, that's now something that I recognize. If I find myself pushing something to the side more than twice or more than three times, okay, no, no, no. I know that this is some, and then, and you know what usually happened is that once I jumped in, yeah, of course, was a little bit challenging, but it wasn't as hard as I made it out to be in my head, right? And then I'm kicking myself in the butt. I should have just done this last week when I was supposed to do it. Why did I wait so long? And it happens every single time, but now I'm getting better at recognizing that as soon as I'm pushing something off to the side, it's not that I really don't have time for it. I'm just already get feeling overwhelmed. I'm overcomplicating it in my head and I'm thinking it's going to be 110 steps. And then am I going to have to find that could just be my ADHD talking, but I'm already like, I have to, then I'm going to have to probably figure out another step on how to do the one thing. Then it's like 10 more other steps.
hmm
But I don't know that yet. I haven't even jumped in and started. So,
Mm. So you start
yeah.
strategizing things before you're even in the task.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that overwhelm. That's such a good indicator for yourself. I know for me and for a lot of people, it's like they just feel nervous and it's not really linked to anything. So, for instance, like I'm on the board of like the Colorado National Speakers Association. I've been in the organization for 7 months, and there's people in this organization for over 30 years. It's very prestigious. And I got nominated to be on the board and I was like, what? No, not
That's
me. No. And
amazing.
but then I talked to the woman who nominated me and she's like, yeah, you just got to do it. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So I just my reframe now is when I'm feeling overwhelmed, maybe if I feel like a task is too big for me or the leap is too big or I don't have the tools, it's like, how would my friends or mentor view me doing this task? Because they have a lot nicer talk to me than I talk to myself, my internal dialogue. And then also, why am I holding myself back? It's such a good opportunity. And I
Yes.
mean, will I fail? Probably a little bit, but at the grand scheme of things, I'm there to help out. So why not? So that's my
Yeah.
indicator, those nerves. And my automatic reaction is no. And I'm just like, oh, that's a good marker for me to stop and take a deep breath and think to myself, why am I feeling like this so quickly?
Yeah. Oh my God, that is so true. So I did a little bit of theater back in the day, right? In like high school and college. And it's one of those things that they talk about is that, right before you get on stage, you have that fear. And yeah, you have all these techniques on like how to calm yourself down. But the truth is, they tell you that never goes away. You just start getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And also another thing that I love that I tell my kids all the time because sometimes they'll get nervous. My daughter, when we're on our way to her game, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. What if I do this?" What? And I said, "No, no, no, you're not nervous." She's like, "I'm scared." You're not scared. You're just excited. Right? And it's like something that I try to remember to tell myself if I do feel those feelings, it's like, no, 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 you're just excited, right? Because I guess like you can trick your brain into thinking it's like the same exact feeling. But then you automatically, by just switching that word to excitement, it's now, you feel better about it. So,
I love that. Just rewiring what you're saying to yourself.
yes. Yeah.
Oh, I would love to take this opportunity to pivot a little bit because I
Yes.
know that we are both Latinas in leadership roles. How has your cultural upbringing impact the way you lead people?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this question. So, going back to communication, because I am the oldest daughter, I'm the only daughter. I've definitely helped my parents out with like speaking English. I obviously spoke English before they learned the language, so I always had to interpret for them. Even to this day, I'm still very involved with like helping out my parents and everything. I'm like the house manager. Like, and that's how it was growing up and from a very young age. But I definitely took those same skills into my career, into really every aspect of my life, into relationships, with friendships, whatever, right? I think that's why I'm great at communicating. But being a Latina, especially working for a Fortune 500, and it's especially where I work, it's also very male dominant in the sense of like where the brand stands. And I would find myself in rooms where not only was I the only female with like all of these VPs and, directors, but I was also the only Latina. And in the beginning, I think because, especially within my household, it's like, oh no, just you don't want to raise any flags or you don't want to cause attention or call attention to yourself. So it was just like, just follow what they say. And it worked for so long, right? It worked for me in getting just follow the directions and getting to a certain position. But it got to a point where I realized that staying silent and then just listening to what was happening, it wasn't, not only was it not enough, but I found myself also with these internal like frustrations. It's like I should have spoken up. I should have said something. And so I really needed to find my voice. And I did find myself in those situations where I'm till this day, I still remember I walked out of a meeting where I had spoken up and I had said, "Hey, I have a really good idea." Everyone else had ideas. But me being the only Latina who spoke up, for whatever reason, afterwards, it's like, no, 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 no. They weren't asking you. It's like, well, I was in the meeting too. So I found myself in situations where I never wanted to look at it as, oh, it's because I'm Latina. But for whatever reason, I did find myself being treated differently. And
Mm,
and that kind of got me back into my hole with like, okay, you see, Stephanie, this is why it's better not to say anything. But it's like, no, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just, and it was open to everybody. Give us your ideas. Does anybody have an idea on how we can push this brand, on how we can, do this marketing campaign? And I'm full of ideas. So I had to tell myself it's okay to speak up. It's okay, like, stop, shying away because I think that's just how naturally our culture, it's like, don't cause a scene where, it's almost like you have to work a little bit harder to be in certain rooms. That's how I've always felt. I would see my partner or my coworker who unfortunately wasn't working as hard. I would, have 110 things on my plate and then the promotion would go to somebody else. I'd have, so many things. I was doing so many things, and it's like, oh, thank you, Steph. But I was always seen as just like assisting rather than actually being seen as like a leader or just being, I don't know. I'm kind of struggling with the words because so many emotions are actually coming up inside right now.
mm,
But I for sure know that as a Latina, I've had to work harder, speak up more, and unfortunately, some of those times it's like, oh, you're just being a bitch. Oh, it's that Latina. Like, oh, you're just being, and it's like, I didn't say anything differently from what someone else said, but because I said it, then it was seen almost in a negative way, even though it wasn't even meant negatively to begin with. So I've definitely had my challenges working in corporate for so many years. I've seen it. I've seen it with others as well. I've seen it, it's hard for a Latina coming up, and there's not too many of us in leadership roles. I think the percentage is very low. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but it's definitely a lot harder, I feel, for us.
yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. And I apologize if that question struck a nerve.
Oh, no, no, no.
Okay.
I love to talk about it because I know I'm not alone. And so I think the more people that talk about it, it's like no, you have a
Yeah.
voice and it's okay to use it and advocate for yourself. And that's what I've had to learn. And I'm now in my 40s and I
Yeah.
feel like I've finally reached a time in my life where if I could go back to my early days and just say, don't hide, speak up, and kind of just give myself that reassurance. And it's what I've learned throughout my years. So,
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much. And you sharing even just gets me feeling emotional too, because I live in Colorado and I live in a part of Colorado that is it's not very diverse. And I moved to Colorado from Chicago.
Mhm.
And I didn't grow up in a very diverse suburb, but I grew up being able to go to Chicago, and there's so many pockets of Chicago that are just so diverse. And I grew up being like sometimes just like in a room full of Mexicanos or just different Latinos or I don't know, just people from all over the world. And I grew up with that. And so it was kind of hard. And even now, I'm a lot of times, I always introduce myself as Adriana, and I hadn't done that before. And lately, I've noticed because I've been on more stages, I will say my name is Adriana Muñoz. And people will be like, I'm so surprised you said your name like that. And I'll be like, what do you mean? That's my name. And they're like, well, not everyone can say that. And in my head, I'm like, it's not my job to be easily
Yeah.
digestible. So I'll
Right.
say, if you can't roll your R's, you can say Adriana. But it's been a very intentional switch
Okay.
where I am going to introduce myself as Adriana Muñoz. And people, it's so fun because some people will really try to say my name and they like even if they don't get it right, I like want to just give them a big hug and I'm like, "Oh, thank you," because I know it's so sweet and I think of I don't know, that's what I grew up as. It's my name and then when I started working as a nurse, I'm like, I'm going to introduce myself as Adriana.
Love
But if
that.
I could go back, I would have I wish I would have been able to tell myself and say, you are a daughter of an immigrant woman. Your parents are from Mexico.
Hmm.
It's who you are. And so I think I grew up so willing, like wanting to blend in, not wanting to make noise. And now I'm like, I'm on stage and I'm going to say my name the right way.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. And you know what I find interesting? I think we might all have a similar story that way, right? Like my maiden last name is Bettis. And I still remember in my early years when I would go to the front office, oh, your name, oh, Stephanie Bettis. And they're like, what? Bettis. And they're like, looking through, we don't have, oh, Perez. I'm like, oh, yeah, Perez. So then I just started saying Perez because nobody understood.
Mm,
Nobody knew what I was talking about or could find me. It's like, not sure how they took it as, but your story, it's like, oh my God, I had that as well.
yeah, and I understand why people change it if they can't say it, but I at least want to give people the opportunity to say it the right way because
Yeah.
that's my name. And it's just so interesting how people will make a fuss about it. One woman actually rolled her eyes and she's like, "Oh my God, you're so confident." And I was just like, I was like, "Say my name." Say it the right way. And I just try not to interact with that person anymore because I was like, that is a bias.
Yeah.
And
You're
so,
like, I only respond to Adriana. I don't respond to Adriana.
yeah, yeah, like I could have selective hearing too.
Yeah.
But I also think it's so important too to have Latinas in leadership roles and show up authentically because I know for my space in healthcare, I represent a big demographic of patients that aren't represented in leadership. And I think it's really important to have people reflected in healthcare situations and also the other people in frontline healthcare roles that look like you. So I just think that's so important. And I know that you living in California, there's a really big Hispanic population there, a big Latino population. And sorry to anybody listening, I should know the difference between Hispanic and Latino, but my brain is just scrambled right now.
Yeah.
But I just know that it's you represent people that maybe you have shared experiences with that otherwise wouldn't be represented.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And even though I do live in California, like I still see it.
Yeah.
There is, it's very diverse, very multicultural, but it doesn't mean, also that we don't see it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I would just love to learn where do you see 503 Cafecito going? If you think 5 years from now, what are you looking forward to?
Oh, we have big dreams. Big dreams. Obviously, right now we're just e-commerce, right? So we're only selling online, but we would love to, aside from just being seen in like coffee shops, I think it's just really changing that mindset and it's just educating people. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now, is that I used to be like your Starbucks girl. I would just love to go to drive-through. It was quick and just, it's honestly, I wasn't even having coffee at that point. It was just like cream and sugar. But now that I know like quality coffee is and I taste it, I taste that in other coffee shops. And I still love to support like local coffee shops. So I've gone to so many. And for me, it's like I love to ask those questions, right? Like, oh, what's the specialty grade? Because ours is always roasted and we test our quality of coffee. And we hire the Specialty Coffee Association to test every batch. And
Mm,
so we always rate 85 points and above, which makes it specialty coffee. Like you can't say you're specialty coffee if you don't have that rating.
mm,
And so for me and just like learning everything, I want to be able to put specialty coffee in all, right? Like my daughter has, stomach issues, right? So she can't drink coffee, but it's not that she couldn't drink coffee. She couldn't drink certain coffee. She drinks our coffee and her stomach is fine, right? And so there's like so much that I've learned that because it's cheaper to buy beans that maybe are just lower quality, you could have, mycotoxins, you have mold, you have like all of these issues
mm,
that just really aren't good for your body. And at the end of the day, like we want to bring what's good. We want to bring to everyone the quality coffee, what you should be putting in your body, the healthy stuff. So I think in just like educating everybody and just like, yes, I understand like the beans are a little bit, obviously you can go to a store and buy, a bag of coffee beans from anywhere between like $6 to like $10, maybe $12. Ours is like double the price, but you're getting good quality coffee.
mm,
And you feel that, you taste it. And so I think one is just educating the people, and that's okay. Not everyone's gonna, enjoy making their coffee at home. That's fine. But I think as long as I know, it's like, okay, as long as everybody knows. And I think where we also see ourselves, it's like we would love to open up a coffee shop, but I don't, my parents, for example, like they don't drink those lattes. Like that's like the European style coffee. It's more like it's black coffee. They're drinking black coffee and maybe they'll just add a dash of milk, right? And so for me, I'm like, you don't really see coffee shops like that. You don't really see more of just like our Latino culture in these coffee shops. And so we would love, like, that's our next big dream is just open up a coffee shop that's very Latino fused with, enjoying black coffee. Yeah, we'll have some of the other stuff, right? But enjoying it with like maybe pan dulce or it's like something that's
mm.
very like home. For us, it was something that we really got to enjoy. It could be 7 o'clock at night, but if we're at like a family party, oh, ¿quieres cafecito? It's like you're still, offering coffee to your family and everyone's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then that's when the pan dulce comes out, right? So it's a moment of, it's not just drinking coffee, it's like part of our culture. It's part of like when you get to sit down and catch up with your family and share great stories. And I would love to bring that into a coffee shop, make it very like home, but very, obviously with like the Latino vibes. And so I think like for me, that's like the big next thing. And, just kind of just no, be seen as 503 Cafecito, like, oh, okay, yeah, or even just 503. That's actually the area code of El Salvador. But
Mm.
my husband would be like 503. I'm like, yeah, he forgets sometimes that it's like the area code, and I'm like, yeah, it's not just our coffee. Like, but yeah, I would just love to do that. So yeah, we have big dreams. We want to be seen and be in all the coffee shops and bigger buildings for events or just anywhere really.
Yeah, and I love how you talk about your coffee, and I see you light up when you're speaking about it because it's it is like a really beautiful product at the end of the day because it's coffee for a people person.
Yeah.
where where it's coffee for the experience of sitting down, enjoying it. It's and then when I think of cafecito at family parties too, that's always when the pan dulce and like the flan comes out and people are making
Yes.
coffee and you make it with canela and it's just a whole thing
Yes.
and it's an experience. It's a family
It
table,
is.
family sitting down, and I'm so excited to see where this goes. And I want to wrap it up by giving you the floor. Is there anything else you'd like to share with anybody listening or anything you'd like to promote with people?
Yeah, no, I would love to just I think for me, it was very hard to tell people just try black coffee because when I had tried black coffee, I'm like, oh no, it tastes gross. But if you taste quality black coffee, I promise you, you will probably rethink adding all of the sugars, adding the milks. It really doesn't need it. It really, honestly, like that's how you know you have good quality coffee. So I would just love for anybody, just invite anyone to try 503 Cafecito and to follow us. We're on TikTok, or we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook at 503 Cafecito. And then I also have my own page as well where I just talk about my journey being a mom, how I juggle everything and, starting a business while still in my 9 to 5, right? So I want to just connect with others and just kind of give them that little push if anyone's thinking about starting their own thing or just following their dreams. It can be done. It's not easy, but you can do it. And I just talk about motivational stuff on there too. So I'm on TikTok and it's coffee with Steph. So it's at coffee_with Steph.
Thank you so much for hopping on with us today. It was so fun learning more about your journey to where you are and how you are building this new beautiful company that's just focused on such a great quality product and people. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Adriana. It means so much.
Gracias.
It means so much to have, for you to have invited me on here and just to share my story. I love what you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Sedate the Stress. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much fun as I had recording it with the wonderful Stephanie. Once again, this is Adrianna Muñoz. I am a current ERRN, experienced operational healthcare leader, and a professional speaker. And my specialty is helping people lean into those cringy conversations that they'd rather avoid. Bonus, your team can walk away with continuing education credit and having a new perspective on conflict. If you'd like to learn more, go ahead and reach out to contact@ogdenpeak.com, and I would love to help you and your team turn conflict into connection. Until next time, have a fantastic day.